Hello, fellow UniQuesters and guests. UniQuest brings in speakers bi-monthly classes on the first and third Mondays of each month. Tonight's speaker is Buddha Maitreya, who will be speaking to us from Shambhala Monastery in Northern California. Tonight you'll experience the Christ meditation soul therapy music and Shambhala healing tools, which awakens the soul and makes positive life changes through receiving the transmission of Buddha Maitreya's monadic healing blessings. Buddha Maitreya applies sacred geometry and vibrational energetic medicine for personal and planetary healing to help heal the mind, soul, and increase vitality and protect from negative energies. He also has a meditation healing center called the Buddha Maitreya Soul Therapy Center, located 132nd just south of Center in the Montclair Shopping Center. So you can look it out there, and if you want, hear him tonight. Here he is, Buddha Maitreya.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here, and I hope everybody is ready for a little bit of teaching, because that comes with the meditation, and what I'd like to do is do an introduction, introduce myself. You know me as Buddha Maitreya, and I'm known also as Lama Dorje, the kid from America who Tibetans came to his house and spoke to his parents and told him that this is the incarnation of the Buddha, and that not only that, but it was the incarnation of Jesus Christ. And in terms that they could best describe, being non-Christian. So they had many different terms in order to describe me, and all of that became very confusing to my parents, and trying to figure out what they're saying. Messiah and Savior and all those things were very common to them, but relating to their child, it was a big shock. So my brother was there. He was in the room. I wasn't in the room. I wasn't allowed anywhere near the process. I was kept completely private. And so my brother was in the room, and he remembers the whole thing. So I asked him to be interviewed and see what he had to say about that experience. So that's a good way for me to share with you the relationship of me as Lama Dorje and Tibetans coming to my house. Now, if you relate to this in the terms of Jesus and the wise men coming to his parents' house and telling them that this is Jesus and that he's going to do these things in the world, well, it wasn't the way that it's described in the Bible. It was the way they did come, and they did tell my parents, but they also were there to take me away and provide me a monastic life that I would then externalize in at a very young age. At around 14 to 15, I would then be enthroned and externalize in my teachings and live a life of recognition and externalization. That didn't happen. I was pretty much suppressed, all the way through. So there's very little record of my life is Jesus after my young age, and so until I showed up at around 30. So where was I, and where I was is that I was in Tibet. I was in the Himalayas, and I was living and studying and working through my previous life as Buddha. And the teachings that I gave there were everything that I needed to recapitulate with and become as strong as I was when I came back to Israel as Christ. I became that consciousness because of my recapitulation, and I was able to externalize in that very short time. But that wasn't the end of my life. It went further than that. But I won't go into that because that's too shocking for most people to try and deal with. So let's just deal with the first thing. I reincarnate. Now, that's a real troublesome experience for most people. But in Buddhism, you relate to the reality of reincarnation. It's brought up, it's talked about, and it's a facilitated understanding in Tibetan Buddhism, where you have the Dalai Lama and many other high lamas are all recognized previous life lamas. Like the Karmapa is the 17th incarnation of the Karmapa, and the Dalai Lama is the 14th incarnation of the seat of the Dalai Lama. Yeah, so it's recognized in Tibetan Buddhism, this reincarnation process. But in my case, I believe everybody reincarnates. It's not a special thing. It just happens. And that that is our heavenly abode with God, is the tree of life. And the tree of life is the fact that we safely reincarnate in an immortal spirit, and that we do not carry the suffering and the process with us. We're very much redeemed in that process, but in our life we can be brought back into those negative patterns, and those happen very quickly. So we have tendencies to restore many of the negative patterns that we had in previous lives, in lives that we come back into. So in Buddhism, it's taught that when you take a life, it's best to work out negative patterns that you have. But the main reason for that is because you're going to reincarnate. And how you become a good person and a kind person and a generous person in a life, letting go of all this selfishness, you then reincarnate in a more purified life that allows you to be a healer and an understanding, wise, clarified person that has far less immaturity to you due to your previous life of taking on greater maturity. Yeah, so that passes on, and at a young age you can become a very well enlightened, young, grounded person, and by the time you reincarnate, after doing this many, many times, and that becomes what we know as great teachers, great founders of education, and they seek out the truth, and they restore knowledge to truth. So all the furthering of sciences, technologies, and the advancements of humanity is brought about by this reality. So let me show you the experience of my family as Lama Dorje. It's not like the movie. I do not go with the lamas. I do not go to Nepal with the lamas. My parents do not agree to anything, and it is a very aggressive process of throwing these people out of the house. And it took about an hour. I don't know how long, but according to my brother, it took about an hour. So this is my brother's experience, my family's experience, and I'll share it with you.
And he said, "Is my mother there?" And I says, "Yeah." "Your father?" I said, "He's in the back room. Come on in." We weren't allowed to let people in the house. I just told him, "Come on in." He said, "We're here to talk to you about your brother." And about that time, my folks come out in the living room and ran me up the hall to hold the other two kids back. And the conversation I heard was that they're here to take away. He's a chosen one, is the way they were putting it. And they were serious about taking him with them. And my folks, they just got fed up with it and ran him off. I didn't hear nothing else about that till a year later when they got a letter. And the letter stated that they're sorry that Buddha missed his opportunity to do this, and they'll check back in years, in the future. And as far as I know, they might have and might not have. They were determined to get the point across to my folks that this is supposed to be, this has to be, and they weren't taking no for an answer. And there were these two old people in my living room arguing with my folks about taking my brother. And when they left, you could just tell they were looking for him. As far as I thought they were going to just go ahead and take him. He's in the backyard, he's in the backyard. But I didn't know what it was. I didn't know Tibet or Dalai Lama or none of that stuff. None of us did. So it was, and I kept that story to myself till about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I brought it up to Buddha, and I said, "Do you remember that?" He says, "I'm the only one." I said, "No, I remember it too." And so my mom and dad called him Buddha, little Buddha. And that went on for several years, and then he opened a clinic or something in Oregon, and they called him the Messiah. He's opened up a clinic up in Oregon. He's the Messiah. And it was just a private joke between them two. I never knew what was going on, you know, what they were talking about. But it's what these people, the Tibetans, had said to him while they were there. You know, he's chosen for this, and he's supposed to do this and that. And it's just, yeah. I kept sneaking up the hall so I could hear. I'd go from one door to the next, trying to hear what was going on. But they really shook my dad up. He got really upset, and my mom, she was basically laughing. She said, "This can't be real, you know, it's candid camera, some stunt going on. Her brother put him up to it and stuff like that." But she checked, and as far as she knew, them people didn't exist to anybody in my family but Ronnie. And it's just, what is that word?
About
Him being different?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was always different. He was always thinking. You know, he showed his intelligence way early when he was like 12, 13 years old. He was able to do things that other people couldn't do. But if you asked him for a hammer or a screwdriver, he wouldn't know the difference between them. But you could talk about a constellation in the sky, and he'd know what you were talking about. You know, none of us knew how he knew what he knew. Yeah, my dad called me in Vegas to come down and help him end it all. Because he's suffering strokes, daily strokes, and he had cancer, and he was terminally ill. And everybody tried to find Buddha, you know, to let him know. And I've talked to everybody, and they said, no, we never got in touch with him. You know, how would he know what was going on? He knew the phone number, he knew the address, and what hospital he'd been in. We knew all three of them. I didn't even know him, you know. But he
What was your family's heritage, Native American heritage?
Blackfoot and Cherokee. My dad was Blackfoot. My mom was half Cherokee. We weren't allowed to say we were Indian. My dad come up with some off-the-wall crap, Black Dutch or Portuguese and all this other stuff, but you never mentioned being Indian. Because back then, you know, that was a bad thing to be. No one liked you. But Thanksgiving one year, we were having Thanksgiving dinner, and this big semi-truck come down our street, and no truck's supposed to be on that street. And Buddha went running out there and stopped the guy. You know, here's a little guy stopping his big 16-wheeler. And the guy says, "What do you want?" He says, "You're not home having Thanksgiving dinner with your family?" He said, "No, gotta work." He said, "Wait here." He went inside, got a plate, and took it back out there and sat in the truck and ate with him. You know, that's the kind of character he was back there. That's a kid doing that. You know, and this guy was a stranger.
Mm-hmm. So that's my brother, yeah, and that's what happened. Yeah, you might have seen the movie Little Buddha, but this is the real truth. This is really what happened. And then after that, life went on. You know, I was drafted in the military. I'm a conscientious objector. I stayed and meditated and worked to heal the war of Vietnam, and it ended when my tour of duty was over with, almost on the same day. You know, so I felt really good that my service had a direct effect upon the war and effect upon everybody that was running that war. You know, so I stepped in as a member of that group and believing that that would make a difference. So I allowed 4 years to be in the military. Yeah, and so from that point on, I focused on the reality of, I knew that I would be externalizing by the time I'm 30. And the difficulty with externalization as Buddha Maitreya and being Jesus Christ is that most people under the teachings of the Dalai Lama or other Buddhists, they do not include Jesus as a Buddha. They do not include Jesus as anything other than a separate religion. And that's not true. You have to study the teachings of the Buddha himself and find out that Buddha did not claim to be the Savior. He did not claim to be the Buddha of all Buddhas. He gave a very clear teaching over the fact that he was not going to be saved, and no one's going to be saved until Jesus comes. And once Jesus comes, Jesus will save us all. And he was like a John the Baptist, and he taught that way. He did not teach that he was the Buddha of all Buddhas. He taught that he was Buddha and clear enough to know that he was not going to be saved by his own merit and other things of that nature. No matter how hard he tried, there was not going to be any way anybody was going to be saved that way. That's the old way. The way we're saved is by the coming of the Son of God. And that only through that one being do we get lifted up and saved in the blessing and the light that comes from that. So all the way up to that, we're missing the boat. We do not have the right path. We are not connected to the right teacher. We are connected to many and always think that one's got to be the one. And that included Buddha. So the disciples of Buddha stopped there, and they erased the teachings of the coming of Jesus, and they included the teachings of the coming of Maitreya. But it's not the truth. It's not the whole truth. So I'm going to show you the original teachings that are given by Buddha, that were found in 1954. That's carved stone in one of the oldest of Buddhist temples. And when they found it, it was covered over by plants and everything. When they uncovered it, they found teachings that were not amongst the teachings in the standard Buddhist text. There were many things that were there that seems to have been destroyed or taken out of the text. So this is very early text, and before things got destroyed and changed, just like the Bible. So this is what they found in 1954.
In the Buddhist scriptures of Cambodia, a prophecy regarding a holy one would come, one who would lead people away from the old way and introduce a new way. When Buddha was traveling and living in this world, there was an old Brahmin priest who asked the Buddha, "How will all men and all Brahmin continue in their merit-making so as to escape the results of sin?" The Buddha answered, "Even though all of you give alms according to 5 precepts, the 8 precepts, the 10 precepts, or the 227 precepts for 9 trillion years, and you raise your hands and offer yourselves as a burnt offering, or you pray 5 times a day, you will still not escape the results of your sin. If you do this every day, your merit gain will only be equal to the smallest strand of hair of an unborn infant, extremely small. You shall not enter heaven's doors." The old Brahmin priest asked further, "What are we all to do to be saved?" The Buddha answered, "The results of sin and karma are very great, heavier than the sky, thicker than the earth, and so high that it would be like an angel dusting the corner post of the temple compound with a cloth post that are 18 inches high, dusting them 1 time per year until the posts were worn down to the ground. When the posts are worn down, that's how long it would take to endure sins." The Buddha said further, I have given up my high position and entered the priesthood. I considered that even though I am good, I would have only a very small amount of merit at the end of the year. If I was given this same amount of merit for 100,000 epochs and lived 10 more lifetimes, I would not be saved from sin's results even once. The old Brahmin priest asked further, "So what shall we all do?" The Buddha answered, "Keep on making merit and look for another Holy One who will come and help the world and all of you in the future." Then the old Brahmin priest asked, "What will the characteristics of the Holy One be like?" The Buddha answered him, "The palm of his hands and in the flat of his feet will be the sign of a disc. In his side a stab wound, and his forehead will have many marks like scars. This Holy One will be the golden boat which will carry you over the cycle of rebirths all the way to the highest heaven. Do not look for salvation in the old way. There is no salvation in it for sure. Quit the old way, and there will be a new spirit like the light of a lightning bug, which will come down from the sky, about to live in all your hearts, and you will be victorious over all your enemies. Nobody will be able to destroy you. If you die, you will not come back to be born in this world again. You will go to the highest heaven, that is nirvana." Buddha was correct about the uselessness of trying to earn merit. The prophecy was fulfilled. When Jesus Christ died on the cross to take away the human sin, through Jesus alone, one can find perfect assurance that the highest heaven is opened by God's grace, not by our own works.
Yep. So that's fact. That's truth. Yeah. I'm just trying to help you get to the place where Buddha left off, and he had a life experience. He shared his life experience. And in that process, he became aware of the future Buddha, which is the coming of Jesus. Yeah. And so take this into process. It's 500 years later. Jesus is born. Yeah. And Jesus goes through his life and goes on, leaves the house, leaves Israel, leaves the family at about 14 to 15 years old. And I continue the process on the Silk Road. And I continue that to the point where I get to Nepal, and I get to Bhutan, and I get to Srinagar. And as I get to Srinagar, I find that there is a monastery in Himas, a place just above Srinagar and in Ladakh. And as I get there, I find out that this monastery is a place in which really ancient Buddhist teachings were encompassed. And a lot of the Ananda and other students that were from that, their teachings are in that. And 2 of the tukus of that period of time were at Himas. And their next life, they're going to be Naropa. Yeah, but and during the time that Jesus was there, the young disciple, later known to be Naropa, was in that monastery. And so a relationship between me and Naropa was developed. And I spent my time studying all the scripts through this student who was Tibetan and could read the scripts in perfect Pali language. So until I was about 28 years old, I studied there, and I became the highest teacher and recognized as the one in which Buddha had spoken of. But at the time, I didn't have any of the marks on me. I had nothing. And I did not have holes in my hands. I did not have holes in my feet. And my life was a process of which this was to happen. I needed to go home. I needed to let it take place, and I needed to ascend. I needed to resurrect after death. And I knew that this was going to be the circumstance, not an easy one. And I knew the whole outcome of what was going to take place. And I knew the people that I was going to meet, the 12 disciples and many, many more. I wasn't attached to anybody, including my mother or anybody else. And I was there solely to fulfill the process of the cross and to resurrect. And once I resurrected and taken on all the sins of humanity, I was able to then return to Srinagar and live out the rest of my life. And I gave the teachings and collected all the teachings of Buddhism and established the Mahayana. And that's all written down in archaeology in Srinagar by professors that are located there. So they know Jesus landed there. They know Jesus did all this. They know all of what I'm telling you. So through further teachings, I'd be able to clarify this. But these are all the things that really, really did happen. So that's who these Tibetans are. They're coming to get me, and they're unable to do it because of the enormous amount of fear in my parents. And just like it was in Little Buddha, there was no way that they could adapt to what was going on. And I helped make that movie. I gave teachings in London, and in that process, I gave the teachings of the coming of Christ as Buddha Maitreya and the coming of the Karmapa in a dilemma of there being 3 manifestation incarnations of the Karmapa, and that there would be a great deal of difficulty of people trying to figure out who is which of these 3 manifestations would be the real Karmapa. And my teaching was that what they're going to find out is that all 3 are the Karmapa, and that there are actually 5, and right now they're only looking at 3, and there are always 5 incarnated at all times. They just do not externalize in that way. They're not like brothers and sisters or anything like that. There's no obvious way to determine that they're the Karmapa. They have self-realization, and that's how it happens. Or their teacher, me, is incarnated, and I see the whole thing way before it ever happens, before the incarnation takes place. After the incarnation takes place, I'm even there for one of the Karmapas to give birth to that Karmapa. So I'm very responsible as the head teacher of this whole Buddhist thing you call Tibetan Buddhism. So my process was to help in the outcome of this Karmapa, because it was going to be a very horrifying outcome if no one said anything and they just showed up, and they're going to show up. So I spent 3 years in London teaching about the Karmapa, and quite often I had one of the Karmapas, the girl Karmapa, in the room as I gave the teaching, which was quite a phenomenon. But the outcome of it was that the Karmapas do show up, 2 of the Karmapas. There's no recognition whatsoever of a female Karmapa, even though she was the first one offered to the Tibetans at the time of her birth. She was at a Dharma center, she was offered and recognized, and because she wasn't a boy, they immediately said, no, there is no opportunity for this to be the Karmapa. Karmapa can't come in the form of a girl. So they completely shunned that one, and no thought ever came up again about that Karmapa, other than with me, because I know who this person is. So that doesn't go away. So Lama Dorje, the movie, is more based on that process, and then now we can see that process really did take place. If you study Tibetan Buddhism, there really was a period of time when they externalized at a young age, around 9 years old, and they had to be enthroned, and there was 2 to be enthroned, and the Dalai Lama chose the one from China, and who they declared to be the Karmapa, and then there was one who was from Tibet, and he was from the original disciple of the Karmapa, Shema Rinpoche, and recognized to be the incarnation of the Karmapa. So here are 2 incarnations, just as I said in London. It's all coming into manifestation. So I'm you might say a prophet. a person who sees the future, who sees how it's happening and how it comes about. But I see a lot further than that, I see who people are. I see who they were in previous lives. I see who they cannot continue being, And even though what's going on is an invisible scenario for them and the world, it is a definite reality in the process between heaven and earth. And humanity carries those strongest negative forces that are demonic in nature and cursed by witches and warlocks who practice astrology, numerology, and other divinations that move people in their lower chakras to have a strong psychic attack between male and female sexual response, which would be the Adam and Eve curse. And that curse goes into humanity, and it becomes what men are attracted to men, and women are attracted to women, and men want to become women, and women want to become men, and all of this happens because of this psychicism, and it's called sex magic. And it's manifested by witches and warlocks in their sexual routine in their ceremonies, and sacrificing human beings, sacrificing animals, sacrificing nature, sacrifice. And in their process of their ceremonies behind the scene that none of you get to see openly, you get to see all these religions and everything going on, but you don't really get to see witchcraft and the coven of Satan that's happening behind the scene. And that instills into humanity a process of Satanism, and it's all paganism. It's based on most of what we do, whether it be Christmas or Easter or the Catholic Church and its process of what it believes in, and no one recognizes the fact that it's a church that decrees itself to Lucifer. And it is a goddess church. It has nothing to do really with Jesus the Christ. It makes Jesus the Christ the very smallest part of the entire church. And if you study it, you'll find that in their prayers are invoked upon Lucifer to bring Lucifer, the Son of God, onto earth, and not Christ. And you got to study it and listen to it, because it's right there in the invocations. It's done on Sunday, and it's done every Easter. And every Easter, they're not thinking Easter bunny. They named it Easter because it's named after Ishtar, enormous satanic individual that is based on the reality of killing God, the destruction of God. Lucifer is the defiling of God to the greatest degree of pride. And the other one is the death of God, the actual killing of God, if at all possible. These two entities are the worst possible things that are found in the Bible, and the practice of the Catholic Church focuses on those two entities, using Mother Mary as a scapegoat in order to practice pagan female goddess worship. And everybody's got to go, Hail Mary, Mother of Grace, and all this stuff in order to keep that energy alive. And it is pagan worship. So paganism moves us into our relationship of practicing astrology or practicing numerology or even doing mediumship or doing a form of channeling, of thinking that, I'm channeling a master, I'm channeling Jesus. There is no such thing. There is no such thing ever. And anybody, is there such a thing? Everybody can have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ remains an individual. It comes directly into your life. It affects your life like a friend would affect your life, an individual. And you have to take that as an individual. You don't become Jesus Christ. You don't become super duper because of Jesus Christ. It's a day-by-day relationship. And you have to have respect. You have to honor that relationship, because it's that way of relating that allows Jesus Christ to continue being in your life. It's a real thing. If you study the Bible, you'll find Jesus Christ is the embodiment of God that came with Adam. And Adam had the embodiment God standing there at all times, the manifestation for that to talk to. So when the fall took place, it eliminated the ability for the embodiment of God to be on earth, to talk to us, literally, to witness the world that we're in and talk to us about it and help us on the path through that world. Yeah. So there was always, during the time of paradise, there was always the embodiment of God. During the fall, that deteriorated to the point to where there was no embodiment of God. And all there was the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit was too close to channeling, too close to psychicism, too close to mediumship, too close to all the other things, because we're missing, literally, the embodiment of God, the belief and the reality of the incarnation of Adam, the incarnation of Christ, the reincarnation of the Avatar. Yeah. So that's what I teach. I teach about that process, and my process is, the Dalai Lama has 14 incarnations, the Karmapa has 17 incarnations. Well, you can look at me today as being the number one incarnation of Buddha Maitreya. And for every life that I will have, I will be Buddha Maitreya number 2, Buddha Maitreya number 3, Buddha Maitreya number 4, infinitely carrying on my lives on this earth forever. There will never be a time where there's the end of Buddha Maitreya. Never be a time. And it will always be the seat of Jesus the Christ. Buddha Maitreya means kindness. It doesn't mean Buddha of a family, Buddha of a person, of a personality, or something like that. It's a Buddha of kindness. All my bodhisattva processes that I've gone through, I did because of kindness, because I actually do care. Yeah, I respond in that way. I respond to that in that way, even to an animal. Yeah, before my incarnation as Sakyamuni, I was a very young man, and I lived in the mountains, and I met these tigers, and my response to their need was to feed my body to those tigers. And that was a bodhisattva process. My experience in that process of giving, to that degree, moved me to the next degree in the next life to be the incarnation of Sakyamuni. Yeah, so those life circumstances that I get put through are not a glorified thing that you would think that would be the life of Jesus or the life of the Avatar. Flowers everywhere and all holy things, yay, and all these ceremonies of good things, be rich or anything like that. It's really not the outcome of any of my lives. All my lives is I am absorbing the hardships of all mankind, of the life that we're in at that time, and I deal with it. I have the abilities to deal with it, and I deal with it through my faith and through my understanding, through my compassion, through my empathy, through my higher wisdom, and my spontaneity. So all of that is put into my tools. All that is put into my work, into my pujas. So the pujas that you'll be listening to in the meditation is based on invocations that purify the curses that come from paganism. You still all are pagans, whether you believe it or not. If I go on and continue talking, you will realize, oh my God, I'm that too. So I put it down into the puja of glamours. I put it down into the puja of dispelling the things that causes you to do the things you're doing, that you can't identify with, like extraterrestrials. You might think, oh, extraterrestrials, they got to be good, Well, not necessarily. Yeah. In history, we have taken time to be involved with extraterrestrials, and that's where the greatest of all worst curses came from. Yeah, and those curses created the lunar lords like Trump and Hitler and all those people who come back as dictators and are possessed by this lower terrestrial force, brings them to a delusion of glamour, which is extraterrestrial. The same terrestrial forces that are below us in our natural nature turn to pride and enormous glamours that become what we call extraterrestrial. Yeah. We're all terrestrial, but if we go really bad, we get extraterrestrial, and we lose all contact with the ability to be in nature anymore. We think we got to rule, we think we got to dominate, we think that we're gods. Yeah, So it's that glamour that's being dispelled, and that glamour influences people to move toward witchcraft. It influences the sciences of pagan worship to move into humanity, to create science that is worked right into our culture, works into our entertainment, works into our movies, works into everything. And it's so prevalent that you can't see through it. You can't recognize it. You're willing to watch vampire movies, you're willing to listen to rap music, and you can't discern, you can't discriminate. So those are the curses that I'm here to reduce, to bring down and absorb. So I've been doing this for a very long time. You know me for Jesus. You know what I did as Buddha. Well, I've been doing this ongoingly every life, all the way up to this one right now. And right now, I have a very serious monastery located in the United States that's putting out tools, and I'm connecting both the East and the West. I'm blessing both sides, so I'm completely harmonizing the planet. Where there's great weakness in the West, and there's great enormous amount of higher mind in the East. And the two are being merged together through my consciousness. I'm East and West. So those two things are bringing about a new culture inside of humanity, a collective consciousness, where we're not separated by races, we're not separated by countries, we're not separated by you being Asian and me being Western. We're synthesized into a collective consciousness that's not moved by lower nature and separation. So this puja that I'm going to do now is one that helps to heal that separation. So all you got to do is do an Om with me, and while I'm doing Om, you do Om. And simultaneously there'll be a puja going on, which is me. And I'm playing music like a drum or these bells, and I'm saying these words that are invocations of angels and aligning. I know these things, so I'm aligning these things from higher mind and the mind of God, which is in where I come from. It's called the monad. So all my invocations are happening monadically, and that is celestial, that is with God. So those invocations come into this moment, and while we're doing the Om, we're connecting a ladder between this present moment and the mind of God, the purpose behind God. And that comes into our prayer, while we're doing the Om. Every Om that we do creates a resonating point of light into the earth. Om, Om. Every time we do an Om, we're actually aligning the influence of nature. Our higher, whether it be our body or our emotions or our mind, all aspects of our nature resonates like a tuning fork while we're doing the Om, because it's the simplest co-creative thing, because everything in life is created under the influence of the Om. So all these tools, sacred geomancy, words of divine quality, all comes through the quality of the Om. So we're going to do the Om. We do it about every 10 seconds, and simultaneously we listen to the puja. So we just stay quiet after the puja, and we continue the Om for 3 Oms, and then it goes quiet. And then I start talking a little more, and we finish up about 5 minutes after that. All right? So we do an invocation prior to this, and it's one that aligns us. It's like I call upon Jesus Christ, and I call upon Father God, and I call upon, all these things. Well, that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to call upon Jesus Christ, and we're going to call upon the Father God, and we're going to call upon that to heal us, and to heal our mind, to heal our emotions, to heal our physical body, and to bring us into a better relationship with Christ. The only one, the only thing we need to have a relationship is Jesus Christ. We don't have to think about, how does this happen? Why does astrology work like that? Let all that go, because that's Lucifer. That's another teacher, It's a whole other thing, all my teaching is to tell you paganism does exist. Get out of it. If you have a book, if you have a newspaper, if you talk astrology or refer to anything in some psychic weird way, let it go. Don't trust it. Don't think this is not an experiment. Yeah, we are not messing around. Yeah, you got to take a stance, and your stance has to be with Jesus Christ. And the teachings of Jesus Christ are very stern, very direct, and the only way you're going to pass through this thing is following those authorities. Yeah, because the other authorities are all fallen angels, and they're ready for you to fall. They're ready for you to move in that direction. Yeah, so there isn't a virtue that can't be brought forth. And these invocations help to bring that about, because it's aligning your ashram, your soul, and your monad. Yeah. So when I say ashram, I'm talking about the fact that you're a spiritual person. Maybe not this very second, maybe in hopes you are. Yeah. But in the future, you will be blessed by Jesus Christ. Personally, you will wake up by Jesus Christ. You will become awakened through that process of Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ in this world is the head of this world, the whole of the world. Yeah. He's the Lord of the world. Yeah. And in that process, it's an ashram. The whole world is an ashram. The freeway you're on, the store you go to, the restaurant you go to, it's all an ashram. Whether or not it should be in existence is dependent upon the people of the ashram. Yeah. If you choose not to eat sugar, then there's going to be far less sugar produced. So we create the ashram through our actions, our goodwill in action. And by healing these qualities of our nature, the ashram slowly but surely is built. Yeah? It's not a physical structural thing. It's every living human being taken in relationship to Jesus Christ. Not the Pope, not the Dalai Lama, not Michael Jackson. I don't care who you think is fancy, who you think is the best of the best. Drop it. Yeah? Just go one way, just one person. That's it. Because this one reincarnates along with you. And we're never going to be a time where we're not incarnated. So we can always talk like this. Yeah? We can always have this relationship like we're immortal. Yeah? Eternal. In life. You cannot imagine a better life than going in and out of life with Jesus Christ. You can't imagine a better life. And as the future comes, my communication and my ability to travel and be with people more and more and more, easier and easier and easier, will make it possible. Yeah, because we're in the world with Jesus Christ. We need a world that's like this so we could be with Jesus Christ without it being a big hassle. Having to travel on a boat, having to, maybe did you talk to him? Did you meet him? Do you know what he sounds like? Do you know what he looks like? In this world today, we all can get past that, so we can all have a real personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Not just through the Dalai Lama or through the Pope or through some disciple or some church saying that you can have a relationship through this book with Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ reincarnates. Yeah? So it's inevitable to the reality of everybody being able in the future to have an ashram, and in that ashram they are healed. Yeah? We're not talking cancer, we're not talking leukemia, we're not talking all these things that suffer inside of humanity is over with in the ashram. So it's vitally important to get rid of paganism, because it's what's causing your problems. All of it. Every single bit of it. Yeah? Okay. So, invocation. Just repeat after me. I invoke the power, the love, and the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad. To guide me into the right activity in the plan. To clarify and stimulate my mind. To transform and transmute my feelings and emotions. To energize and vitalize and heal my physical and etheric body. So there is a normal flow of energy in my physical and etheric body. To this day and every day, I ask this in the name of the Christ to serve the One. All in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay. So just relax, listen to the puja. I'll begin the Om. I'll say, take a deep breath, and then from there we begin Oming.
soul to take away your heart. Close your mind. Open your heart. The angel you are is not an extraterrestrial. No one but God leads us along. No one but God tells us the truth. Close your mind to extraterrestrials. Close your mind to illusion and darkness. Close the door of hell. Open your heart to light. Home in the war. Choose your way. Be an angel. The fall of Atlantis. It was our past. The extraterrestrials guided our way. Open the door to the truth and light. Close the door to illusion and lies.
Okay, just relax. Okay, just open your eyes, wake them up. All right, so we can see we have a world that has a few problems. Yeah, we have a totally insane president, and we have an insane situation. And we are finding that we really, all of us in every country, are doing just well enough to cope with this and see how we better should cope with it, and then move toward coping with it better. So that's a wonderful thing, because we'd be in a really bad thing if everybody was like President Trump, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's like living in China. Yeah, you know, so same scenario there, same scenario here. Yeah, there's really not a big difference. It's just that, you know, they try and make it look like it's less than it is. That's all they did. That's all he's doing, you know, every month, every week, you know, and then he gets on board, you know, because he knows he's not going to get reelected unless he gets on board and takes credit for any little bit of this thing that's working out. So we have a real elemental problem. And I came in 1951, and we were in the middle of a nuclear holocaust that was going to happen in America. And I needed to stop that, and I needed to turn away 2 nuclear wars that were inevitable to happen. And they were continued, you know, throughout 2035. That would be the third world war, the third nuclear war. Yeah, and never happened. The first one did not happen. The beginning strategic arms process of Japan. There's not a lot that I could do about to keep that from happening. Yeah, and so we in the hierarchy, we rushed up as much as we possibly could to move things away from the direction in which mankind was moving, which was worldwide destruction, planetary destruction, major holocaust, yeah, you know, and one more after another, which just makes it worse. Yeah, and we can't come out of it. What you're having with this is nothing compared to having nuclear bombs at 10 to 100 times the size of, you know, Nagasaki, you know, hitting San Francisco and New York and LA and San Diego and all of you know, just every place, hundreds of them coming down, you know, and just the craziest ass people facilitating a very demonic pledge to destroy this planet. And you know, we got one guy here, we've got other people in North Korea, we've got others that have their scenario. Yeah, so all of this is in process of healing, whether you understand it or not. It's not looking good. Looks like it could have gotten really bad. Yeah, but it's really actually in the process of healing. Yeah, so incarnating in 51, in the amount of time that I've given to heal this planet, yeah, I've done a lot of work. I've fulfilled a lot of projects. Yeah, I put mankind on the moon. Yeah, I moved weapons that would have been rocket ships and nuclear bombs and nuclear rocket ships into becoming strategic scenarios for us to get satellite station in space, and for us to work through science, and us to begin negotiating international lab and an international space station. All that was brought about by my work, emphasizing being within the group of NASA, being within the group of the space program at a very early age. So I literally put my time and energy into that in order to be lifting people up by being a part of a certain group. So that altered humanity, but by the time I got to be 30 years old, I had been dealing with extraterrestrials, which most people just think are like a total fictitious facade thing, and they're not. They're very real. They abduct people, they do harm to people, they come exactly in the form of demons. They're everything we ever think about a demon. We're talking extraterrestrial here, so it's not a good thing. And they are in and out of the scenario because they're breaking the law. And the reason why they're not being seen, why they can't come and just make themselves known and take over the whole planet, because God exists. God stands between you and these extraterrestrials. So I spent all my youth dealing with the process of that kind of thing, and then by the time I get to 30, I meet all the top abductees of extraterrestrials, contactees of extraterrestrials. And the movie Close Contact with Third Kind and all these different movies come out of nowhere, simultaneously at the same time that I'm actually dealing with it on a real reality. And I'm dealing with it in a way that I'm learning what it would take to change this process. So I began working for 10 years developing the science of the soul. And creating an ashramic, actual physical ashramic scenario that I could then use to radiate my voice and radiate my light, radiate my embodiment into, and increase the size of my being. So first of all, I had to be enthroned. My physical body had to turn into a temple. So I had to have masters looking at my eyes, looking at my face, listening to my words, and radiating and transmitting, the highest masters on the planet, transmitting back to me that I am who they see, who they feel, who they've always studied about, and that begins making all the structures of the temples of Tibet start oscillating with me being put onto a throne, which is right there in the mandala, right there in all the tankas, So I had to get myself psychically, I had to move myself into that circumstance, which is not an easy thing, because, they're not people you call up, go on the web and say, how do I, sign up, to be externalized as Jesus or something. So it really is, you got to go right into it, and you literally let them see you, let them witness you, so I had to spend 10 years in Nepal, hanging out in Nepal, not an easy thing to do. I started in 1984, and I sat there with lots of Rinpoches and a high master, Swami and everything. They all recognized me, and they wanted to enthrone me. But there was no way I was going to be enthroned without them recognizing this little girl who was the Karmapa. To me, that's more important than me, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm in charge of everything. I don't have to worry about my enthronement until the year 2000. That's when I have to be enthroned. So this is 1984. This is way ahead of the time. So I'm not worried about that sort of thing. I'm worried about the Karmapa. I'm worried about the Tukus. I'm worried about my students. And they're out there. And I need to help find them. And I need to organize a way to save them from the Dalai Lama. From the structures of Tibetan political regime. And doing very horrifying bad karma within their group that keeps them from allowing their masters to reincarnate and to be recognized, to the point to where the Dalai Lama literally says, I don't think reincarnation is important. And I don't think we should continue recognizing tukus anymore. He literally says this, to us, in the hierarchy, that's really scary. That's beyond scary. That's when the demon has finally made himself completely known. He's casual, he's up front and feels totally, he could do anything now. He's done everything already, and he can get away with the last thing, which was the teachings of Buddha. Literally eliminate them by the time he leaves his body. I literally telling everybody, I'm as new age as you can imagine. I have control over birth and death. He's telling people he has control over birth and death. He's telling people, I will control whether or not I reincarnate in my next life or I don't reincarnate in my next life. And he's going to find out he has no control over it, but he's creating an obstacle for the rest of humanity, for any person who is recognized as the Dalai Lama, as the reincarnation of this guy. It all of a sudden becomes a war of illusion, because he said he wouldn't. And he will. He will reincarnate. And his next incarnation will create chaos. Enormous chaos. It'll be China going crazy. Oh no, we have the real Dalai Lama. Oh no, well, we have the real Dalai Lama. Yeah? So it's just going to create chaos, him saying something that's totally a lie. And it creates chaos all throughout Tibetan Buddhism. So I had to wait through 1984, and this is a long time, 1984 to the year 2000. And I had to establish a process of, all the different sanctuaries of the earth, whether it be where the tooth of Buddha's at, find all the fallen lords on the planet, from Sai Baba to Michael Jackson to many, many, many people you think is all just fine and dandy. But in reality, they're reincarnations of really, really evil people. And you just don't see it. And you further that process. So I had to spend all those years searching, recognizing, and coming in contact with these people. I literally had to come in contact with them or their aid. They had to call me on the phone or physically come in contact with me. And I had to wait. That's why I was in London. That's why I was externalizing in different places. And I do soul therapy in order to talk with Fergie, Princess Diane, all of Parliament, the King, the Queen, all the people of that family. I touched them all. Every single person. Even Michael Jackson gives me a call. And I said, no, unless you're going to tell the truth. Unless you're going to confess and tell me the truth. Because I know the truth. If I tell you you're doing this and you say you're not doing this, nothing's going to come of this. You're going to walk away the same person you are when you walk in. You must tell the truth. And he says, no, sorry, not going to do that. And this is when he's having sex with both those boys. And this whole event is taking place in 1995. So in 1993. So I'm working on all the lunar lords, coming directly in touching them, talking to them, doing everything, and you have no idea this is what I'm doing. You have no idea that I'm out there doing this sort of thing. And you're all pledging and giving money and everything to these people who I am trying to save you from. And I destroy them. Every single one of them. They all are destroyed. Their lives are short and they die horrible deaths. Because they're not going to be saved, but they're going to be judged by God. Not by me, but by God. And the process that I then do after that is that I have to build a monastery right after I'm enthroned. So I run back to Nepal. Stay there from 1995 to the year 2000. And I hang out there. And I make a legal church, and I establish a church of Shambhala Vajradhara Maitreya Sangha. Which is the most powerful thing that will ever be put on this planet. Planet Earth is the earth of Shambhala Vajradhara Maitreya Sangha. Every living human being is Sangha. Every living human being. And that includes plants, animals, vegetables, minerals, rocks, and water. Even the gases in the air that you're living in. All of that is under the sacred reality of Godhead. And nothing falls short of that elemental grace of the Holy Spirit. And that creates a sacred planet. Unless that's going on, you ain't got a sacred planet. You got extraterrestrials running you. You got lunar lords running you. You've got demons on TV. You've got people running around in perverted states, and you're tolerating it. because you're possessed. Yeah? You probably know your astrological signs better than you know anything else. Yeah? And it's just a process of helping to clean this thing. So I had to go through my process, and I wait and I get enthroned like this. Yeah? And I go from one enthronement to the next. And then I get out of that, and as soon as the enthronements, all these enthronements, every single area of Tibetan Buddhism I'm enthroned in, whether it be the Galupa, the Nyingmapa, doesn't matter which they are, I'm enthroned at the top as the founder of each one of those systems. Yeah. So once I've done that, I can head back to America, and with these honors and all the certificates, I'm able to say, let's look for a piece of land. And I'm going to build the monastery for Earth. Yeah? The beginning point of healing the earth, where Jesus Christ will always be known as on earth. Yeah? The place where we always know Jesus is here. Yeah? Yeah? So I build this. And this is where we're at. This is Shambhala. This is the pyramid. This is the first capstone that went on it. You know, it went from that to putting in the domes. And each one of them with dome, and there are 6 domes, they all create a 6-pointed star in configuration, just like all the symbols that you see for Shambhala. And in that is a pyramid. And right here you see a capstone coming down on that pyramid. Yeah. So all of that is to influence the science that God created this earth with. You know, this science, a mathematical science of the finger of God. Everything's got a fingerprint. Yeah, your ear is different than anybody else's ear. Your fingerprint is different than anybody else's fingerprint. This is God's fingerprint. Yeah, God's fingerprint right there. Not your fingerprint, not Joey's fingerprint, not Mary's fingerprint, God's fingerprint. This is it. Yeah? So all I do is that I put this on top of that fingerprint. Yeah? And I radiate the fingerprint. The same geometric form, the same mathematical configuration. The temple is the same. So I'm literally enthroning planet Earth. Just like I got enthroned. Yeah? Just like they did for me. Yeah? So I do it for every living thing on this earth. I take my enthronement and all my certificates, and I build this frickin' thing. I build it, and I lift everybody up. Everybody up. All the merit, all you know about Jesus Christ, all that you've ever known about the right things about Jesus Christ, is all passing into everything now. Yeah? And every day it's being moved and awakened in that. The laws are coming back into order. Yeah? It's not about Peter, the closest disciple of Jesus, telling you now these are the things that you should do, and the next disciple can do this or that, and that disciple, you know. That doesn't even exist. Yeah? There are no such things. All there is Jesus. Just Jesus. That's it. And all the things that I do are different than what anybody else does. Yeah? My music is not like anything you'll ever do. My ashram is not like anything you'll ever build. Yeah? The making of this particular system, this place is like beyond crazy. That's amazing. Yeah? And then it's placed in a location like this. Yeah, on top of a mountain. Yeah, in the oldest place on earth. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not just saying this because that would be a really good thing to say to make this really special. Top it off with, oh, this is the oldest place on earth. And it is the oldest place on earth. There's only one other place that is thought to be older than this place. So that means it's either that place or this place. Yeah, no one really knows because we're talking going back millions of years. Yeah, so on this land is where dinosaurs roamed. Yeah, and it's still the same. On this land is where the greatest amount of old ancient earthquakes took place. Yeah, where we live, it's called Bottle Rock, because all of the mountain turned to glass in the fire of that earthquake, in the fire of that great big volcano, and it blew into the sky and covered all the ground, and our entire ground is covered with boulders as big as, you know, a VW. Yeah, they're humongous. Yeah, you cannot imagine things like that, but here it is the way it is. So here, I then have to do something in order to eliminate the curse. I made the building, yeah? But now I have to help you in relationship to becoming my disciple, my student. And that would be here, if you meet me, you'll see these solar farms on me, yeah? You'll see me walking around with a Vajra in my hand, yeah? You'll see me sitting at a table in a restaurant wearing all white, you know, and with the Vajra and malas on, you know, and that's just me on an average day, you know, getting out of the car, you know. And every time people just go, whoa, what is that about? Whoa, what kind of uniform is that? They're lucky I'm not wearing this, you know. Usually I just take this off and wear everything else underneath it, you know, white shirt and all my malas and all this kind of stuff, yeah. You know, so that's my life. That's been my life since I was a little kid. Like my brother said, they called me Buddha as a child because I walked around looking like a Buddha. Yeah, I walked and sat in meditation, all this stuff. Yeah, so in order for people to really heal, they got to learn about their teacher, and their teacher has these forms. Yeah, so the teacher teaches the students how to make the forms. Yeah, and that becomes the first thing, yeah. Anybody who became my student, you know, in the early 1990s, yeah, they had to learn to weld, yeah. They had to learn to wrap. They had to make the tools that I wore. Everything that I wore, everything that I did, I wanted to share with people, yeah, because it's a science. It protects me from Satan. You don't even know Satan exists. And I do this because I know Satan exists. And I know you're a disciple of Satan. And that's just fine and dandy with me because I'm going to save your ass. It's only happening because of curses. And they go on life after life after life. And in this life, I can become omnipresent. I can be on TV. I could be on this thing. I could be doing all kinds of things. So we make an enormous amount of tools, and we make those tools available. You know, all over the planet. You know, there are pyramids that cover the entire earth. On every continent, there are soul therapy pyramids. On every continent. There are thousands of soul therapy pyramids playing with my pujas going on 24/7 all the time. In homes, millions of people in their homes listening to my pujas all the time. Yeah, and these tools, people see them, they buy them. Yeah. It's an automatic attachment to the reality of their spirituality. They see not a glimmery jewel, you know, they see spirituality. And it's something they want to align to. Yeah. So that's this process. It's a part of the process of temple building, thought form building. You have to see yourself as a disciple of Christ. And know that I care. And I won't allow you to live like that. Yeah? It will purge out of you. Yeah? And over time, you will see what is right and what is wrong. What is Satan? Yeah? And what is the lesser side of the delusion, which is Lucifer? And Lucifer is Satan. There's no separation. It just gives you a feeling that, oh, I wonder if Lucifer could be saved. Yeah? It's a temptation. Yeah? It's not real. Satan is Satan. Yeah? And all the legions of the fallen angels that come with it all have to be released from your relationship in life. And they have names. Yeah? Anger, jealousy, enviousness. Yeah, all those things are the names of demons. Yeah? And if they're in you, if that experience expresses from you, you've got that demon in you. That's its name. That's yours now. Yeah? I'm a jealous person. I'm an envious person. I'm this and that. Yeah? Those are the things that I reduce and cleanse and cure you from. It's a curse. Yeah? And it's elementally controlled. Yeah? So all of these tools, all these little things that I make, yeah, are all there to vibrate with the temple building process of the coming of Christ. Yeah? It's a slow process. I've been here for a long time, and yet you don't really know this. So it's a coming of Christ. I'm coming. I'm in the Holy Spirit. I'm behind the scene. You don't really know I'm here, but yet you do. You still got to go, well, is he? You really think he is? But yet he calls himself Buddha. You know, how can be Christ? I'm not trying to confuse you. Yeah? I'm trying to eliminate false teachers. Yeah? And Buddha was the first right teacher. Yeah? And I will stand behind that. I stood behind that. I stood right there and said, yeah, go for this. Prepare the way, because I'm just ahead of you. You know? And when he got old, he then told everybody about me. And when he died, on the days that he was dying, the last days he was dying, I was standing right there with him. And he turned to everybody and he said, don't cry anymore. Don't suffer. You know, this one here is going to be your next Buddha. And I was Maitreya. Yeah. So that was the cleansing. I was literally there at the time of his death in order to make the transition easier for people. But yet, no one, they all ended the reality of the fact that he reincarnated after that. Yeah. And continued reincarnating. Yeah? And that took many lives, from the life of Buddha to the life of Jesus, to get to the point where I was able to incarnate as Jesus. Many lives. There are many lives that in previous times Adam lived at almost 1,000 years. Yeah? You know, so just imagine, that's the lineage of Jesus. That's the energy and vibration that comes from Jesus. Yeah? He's the last priest of the order of Melchizedek. And that means the lineage of Adam. Yeah? So when you take teachings from me and you work with these tools of Metatron, you're working in the last order of Melchizedek, which is a direct lineage to Adam. Yeah? So you're talking Genesis. And the power behind Genesis is what comes out of me. Yeah? And that gives life. It resurrects people, it heals people, but it does more than that. It gives and extends life. It gives us life. Yeah? So in my family, we normally would live 1,000 years or more. Yeah? So from where I'm looking, everybody has this in their temple. It's hidden in the temple. And we need to get the temple to fill up with the Holy Spirit, so that the temple becomes what the temple's meant to be, rather than just a trash can. Yeah? Something we just consume things with, and we use our bowels, just for waste of food, rather than knowing that everything we eat is prasadam. And if we're in a temple and we're good people and we're eating with simplicity and light, and we fast and we do all these good, right things, yeah, all of our body becomes this illuminating vehicle to heal the earth. Yeah? All the things of the earth pass through us. We're microcosm, macrocosm. We're the healers, the caretakers, yeah, for every single thing. But unless, this is how you become a disciple, is that you know that this is true. Yeah? And you live this way. And it stays with you. And that's your foundation. That's bodhisattva. That's the influence of having right nature inside of you. Yeah? And then you give freedom to all nature. You give freedom to everything. Yeah? You can eat a piece of meat, and you can have love and understanding and compassion and all kinds of things, because you're making choice. I'm only going to get grass-fed. I'm not going to eat that much. That way, over my lifetime, I might have eaten 10 cows. Normal for a life. Yeah? Not 100 cows and 500, buckets of ice cream and, 6,000 buckets of French fries and, all the other things that come with our desire body. Yeah? So it's the desire body that has to be healed. Yeah? And it is brought by those lower elements. Yeah? So the pujas that I do, all the things that I do in the pujas are there to resonate with your higher elemental bodies and to build your temple. Yeah? So it's necessary to listen to my pujas and use those as your meditation and build your temple. Yeah? Because the one who's literally the temple builder is the words and the invocation, me, that I'm invoking through these pujas. And the temple isn't just you, it's personal and planetary healing. It will heal your husband. Yeah? It will heal your children. It will heal your mother. Because everybody's cursed. Everybody's cursed. And they curse you. So I work to heal everybody and everything. If you take it in, it will touch every part of your relationships in life. It's just the way I work. Yeah? So a lot of people get a solar form and think, oh, this is only going to help me. Not the way it works. It's going to change your job. It's going to change your position in life. It's going to change all your relationships. Everything, yeah, is going to change. Yeah? So it's important to understand that this is an ashram activity. Yeah? And people need to get themselves together, knowing that I'm not a part-time disciple. I am born to be a disciple. This is my only purpose on earth. Once I make this commitment, I'm free. Now I can eat. Now I can live. Yeah, now I can have relationships, because I'm going to try my best to discern and discriminate. Yeah? And keep away from all these things. And listen to puja and give my solar forms and all of that. Yeah? Because this is a church and it's the science of the soul. We need a soul. We all want to believe we have a soul, but we'd be healing everybody. We'd be healing each other. Everything you see in the disciple relationship of Jesus Christ and all the work that I did but they didn't do is what I expected of them. It was examples I was showing. It wasn't like I was going to walk around and do all that all on my own. My expectation was to show the example, and with a little bit of faith you could do the same thing. Yeah? But with no faith you won't even try. Yeah? Yeah. So that's the purpose of these tools, is to give you an etheric weaver so you can try. Yeah? Yeah? And it works like a super duper magic process. It heals people, it helps people, it changes everything. Okay? So thank you for allowing me into your Unity Church and to spout off my teachings for you to better understand Jesus Christ in this life and all your lives. So enjoy.